Ho ho ho, it's time for the holidays, and that means it's time to start making some gifts. And one of the things I love to do with the holiday season is bake, and I love to share my baked goods with friends. And what better way to do it than with a tiny little box that you've made from scratch with your own embellishments. I've got some Amaretto Apricot Chews cookies here, one of my favorites. Our cute little box loaded up with 10 of them. And I'm going to show you how to make them. I'm Joe Rotella. Welcome. Let's get started. We'll start by making our little box. I'm using a Scor-Pal. This is one of my favorite tools to have in the studio. And you can tell I've had this one a long time because the lines are just about a ½ inch apart. There's a new model now that the lines are much closer together. But for what we're doing today, this is going to work great. And I have a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. All we're going to do is put it in the Scor-Pal. And the key to making a great box is great scoring. So I'm going to start by scoring at 3 inches and then over to 9 inches. And then you're going to take it out, flip the whole paper, and the other scores that are important are at 1 inch. Get it lined up in there. 1 inch, 3.5, 6.5, and 9. So I can put this aside. Now it's tempting because you press down here to fold in that direction, but you always want to fold the opposite direction that you scored. So I'm going to bring this in, and I like really sharp creases. So I'm going to use the bone folder to get these nice and crisp. The key to a good box is a nice sturdy paper and really good score lines and nice crisp folds. So you can see how that would be a little bit lumpy there, but we come in here with that score tool, it's going to work great. And then I'm going to do this one as well. So now I have my paper, it's all scored and folded. Now we just need to do a little bit of cutting. And we always cut in the same sort of direction, if you will, parallel lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in on this side, and I'm going to cut all the way to the second line from the back. Do the same on this side. Rotate it. Come up here just to that first score line. Do the same thing here. Now this part you can see is going to make the lid to my box. And so I don't need all this extra stuff that's going on here. I need the side, and I don't need this piece right here. So that's just trash. We're going to do the same right here. Once you start making boxes, they go very quickly. You can really sort of crank these out. This is what your finished piece looks like. Just so you can see where we're headed, the sides come in, this comes up, this comes up, and we have our great little box. So now we need to put some Scor-Tape on it, a double-sided adhesive tape to hold all this together. It comes in different sizes. I like this wide, ½ inch wide. What I really like about this Scor-Tape is I can cut it with my fingers, right? I just have to tear it. There are other types of double-sided adhesive tape out there, but they're awful. You have to cut them with scissors, and they have this sort of film on it that sticks to me like crazy, static. So I love this. I can move very fast. This is incredibly strong. I use it for bookbinding because it's just that strong. Look how fast this little box comes together. Now, I never seem to have long enough fingernails to pull off the paper top, the carrier part of this. so I can just use this little pick tool. Everything just comes right off. So now we're ready to assemble. I'm just going to flip it over, fold this side in, bring the front up, give it a nice crease, fold the back up, line up that edge, press nice. Going to do the same on the other side. Look at that, the perfect little box for our treats. So we can go ahead and put that aside. Let's go ahead and work on an embellishment for the top of the box. For the embellishment, I have another double-sided adhesive here. This is a sheet. It's got a little stiffness to it, which is nice. I don't need the adhesive on the back. Sometimes you want to keep the adhesive on the back because you can do something on the front, peel the back, stick it right on something. In this case, I don't need that. So I'm just going to peel the back carrier sheet off. And then I have just a sheet of printer paper that's cut to fit. I'm not worried that it's not right to the edge, because we're going to cut a design out of this. I'm going to cut a snowflake. You could use an electronic cutting machine, you could cut it by scissors, you could use a craft knife, you could use a die punch. I'm going to use the electronic cutting machine. Let's head over there and get set up for that. I'm using the Brother ScanNCut. It has a mat that we need to put our piece on. It's covered with a carrier sheet. You want to keep that on as much as possible so that it protects the mat from dust. I am going to put my piece on there. I have an old brayer that I use to make sure that it's really stuck to the mat, especially if my mat is a little bit old. And I really don't want this to move, and it's a thick material, so I'm going to add a little bit of masking tape just to hold that in place. Let's go over to the machine, insert it, do our cutting. We're ready to cut. Now I've already done a test cut, so I know exactly what blade setting to use and what pressure. I'm going to load the mat into my ScanNCut. And then bring up my pattern. It's saved inside the machine. And we're ready to cut. Take the mat out. And let's see what we have. There's our perfect snowflake. So there we have it, a little snowflake. Remember the back, it's not sticky at all because that's where we put our printer paper. This part, once I remove that carrier sheet, is going to be nice and sticky. And I'm going to heat emboss it. Look at these wonderful embossing powders. Look at some of these colors. Midnight Magic. It's sort of a blue-black. Kiss of the Fairy. Kind of a pink. Dragon's Egg. This one's cool because when you emboss it, it gets kind of bubbly. Mermaid Fin, which I love. Look at the blues in there. And then this is really cool. This set is Fairy Wings. You use the white base, add some of these other colors as you go, and you have the perfect fairy wings. When I think of winter, though, I think of blue. So we're going to use this Mermaid Fin. I have an extra little piece of paper here to reclaim my extra embossing powder. I'm going to peel off the carrier sheet. And I do want to avoid, if I can, touching all that sticky part, because that's the goodness that's going to hold my embossing powder. You can see here I'm using that same pick tool just to kind of hold this in place. It's especially important once I hit it with the heat gun because the air from the heat gun can just blow it right off the table. This you might want to mix up just in case it's settled during shipping. You can see all the blue that's coming out now. That maybe had settled a bit. And I'm okay if it's not one solid color. If there's some variation in there when I heat emboss, I think that just makes it extra cool. So we're going to cover all that. Look at the blue. Just love this. This is Rita Baracat's colors. This is one of her Magical Mysteries colors. I'm going to use my finger, the fleshy part, to just sort of press that into that adhesive sheet. Make sure that it's really well adhered. Tap off any extra. And remember, when you use embossing powder, glitter, you want to reclaim all this. Look at that blue. Gorgeous. So I'm going to put it right back in the jar. You don't want to heat emboss when this is still laying on that paper, because it'll either melt or you'll just blow it all over the place. There's my snowflake. I got my heat tool. I'm going to just grab a little piece with my pick tool to hold it in place while I heat emboss. Now it's still a little warm to the touch. I'm going to let it cool. We've got an embellishment, our box. I need to go bake some cookies and we'll finish this up. So I have been baking and I made one of my favorite cookies. This is called an Amaretto Apricot Chew. Yep, Amaretto. There's some booze in here, folks. It's basically an oatmeal cookie, and it has chopped and apricots in it and diced almonds. And it is very chewy. Look at how it bends. And that icing is amaretto with powdered sugar. Can it get any better than this? So if you don't want alcohol, the recipe has tips where you can substitute almond extract. And the recipe is up on this blog post. We'll have a link right here for you to be able to follow. Let me give you a couple little tips, though, when you make this cookie. Apricots are a real pain to slice. They stick to your knife. So use a pair of kitchen shears and just snip them. You'll have much better success. And then whenever you're doing a cookie, especially for a gift, you want it to look professional. You want them all to be about the same size. Use a scoop. Now for these cookies, this is a very tiny scoop. Look at the size. It's basically the size of my thumb, about a teaspoon. And yet it still spreads out quite a bit. And these aren't going to be perfectly round like a sugar cookie would be, because oatmeal cookies just don't behave that way. So there's some tips. Again, check out the blog post for the recipe. One of my favorites. I won't have any now because with the booze, who knows how the rest of the video will go. Let's go ahead and package up our present. So I cut out a piece of wax paper that I'm going to use just to line the inside of the box. And you can see the shape here. It's basically like a person. Just turn it sideways. It's going to go right in the bottom of my box. You don't have to do this, but these cookies have a lot of butter in them. And I'm afraid that butter, when I give someone the box, might leave some little grease marks, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to put them in the box, and here we can just line up. Now this is critical. This is where you have to think about how much do you love these cookies and how much do you love the person you're giving them to, because then you can decide, am I putting 6 in a box, am I putting 8 in a box, 10 in a box. The other nice thing about this particular recipe, very easy to make, and it makes a lot. One batch makes about 80 cookies. So let's see, how many I have in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 fits that box just beautifully. So you can do 10 gifts. You can crank them out just like this. And I've got little flaps here that I can fold my wax paper over, close my box. Now comes the best part, the embellishments. So we made our snowflake using embossing powder, that beautiful blue, and look at the variations in there. I've got a little gift tag. I want to attach that tag to the back of the snowflake. And of course, where you're doing your tag and how you're making all this work is totally up to you. I'm just going to use a little bit of transparent tape just to stick the strings of that tag to the back of my snowflake. Beautiful. And cut off any of the extra string on there. And I'm going to use pop dots. So pop dots are just adhesive foam squares. I like them because it gives me a little bit of dimension. This snowflake then won't just sit flat on the box. It's actually going to be raised up a little bit. So I'm going to put a bunch of those on just half of the snowflake and peel off these little sticker parts, the carrier sheet. And we can stick it right on the front of our box. Nice, fun little dimension. You know, if you don't like that tag dangling, cheat. Stick a pop dot on the back. Look at that, ready to go. And of course we could add twine, wrap it around like you would if you got it at a bakery. The perfect little gift. 10 homemade cookies, Amaretto Apricot Chews, my favorite, in a little homemade box, a homemade embellishment. Easy to make, crank them out fast, show somebody you care with a cute little gift like this. Thanks for watching and happy crafting.